The ice canyon walls gleamed blue and silver under Frosthaven's distant sun. Wind howled through the frozen landscape, carrying temperatures that would kill most species in minutes. Small crystals of frozen atmosphere drifted through the air like deadly snow. Point 3 reptilian Soren scientists huddled inside their armored survey vehicle, watching monitor screens with growing concern. Their mission was simple: scan the mineral deposits in Sector 7 and return to the orbital station before nightfall. Simple missions were supposed to stay simple. Lead scientist Drew tapped his clawed finger against the motion sensor display. The reading made no sense. Something small was moving through the canyon below, and it was not wearing environmental protection that their scanners could detect. "Run the scan again," he said to his colleague Petra. "The equipment must have ice buildup." Petra checked the external sensors. Everything functioned normally. She adjusted the visual feed, bringing the canyon floor into focus. Her inner eyelids flickered in shock. "That is a human child." The third team member, an insectoid hiver named Clicks, leaned closer to the screen. His translator unit buzzed. "Impossible. Humans cannot survive these temperatures. Their homeworld is a warm garden planet." But there was on every scanner a small human, perhaps 6 years old, walking through terrain that registered -80 degrees. The child wore only a thin jacket and boots. No settlement suit, nobody the mask, no emergency beacon. Drew pulled up the human settlement database. Ridgepoint was 12 miles north, a mining colony established 8 months ago. Population 43. The distance was walkable for an adult in proper gear, but this was a child in weather that should have already caused fatal hypothermia. "We need to initiate rescue protocol," Drew said, reaching for the emergency comm system. Petra grabbed his arm. "Wait, look at the extended scan." The monitor switched to wide view. Drew felt his body go cold despite the heated cabin. Motion signatures appeared all around the child. Large ones. The computer identified them immediately. Ren beasts. 12 of them. Clicks made a distress sound that his translator could not properly convert. Everyone in the galactic community knew about Ren beasts. They were Frosthaven's apex predators, standing 4 feet at the shoulder with claws made of a metallic organic compound that could shred starship plating. Their fur secreted natural antifreeze. They hunted in coordinated packs and had killed every research team that attempted to study them up close. The collective had classified Ren beasts as extreme hazard level 9. Only level 10 threats were considered more dangerous, and those were extinct species known only from fossil records. "Launch the rescue drones," Drew ordered. "Armed configuration. We need to extract that child before dash." He stopped talking. On the screen, the Ren beasts emerged from ice caves along the canyon walls. They moved with terrible grace, muscles rippling under thick fur. Their breath created fog clouds in the frozen air. The metallic scrape of their claws on ice came through the audio feed. The creatures surrounded the human child in a perfect circle. Petra activated the recording system. Whatever happened next needed to be documented. When they recovered the body, the human government would need evidence. She had seen footage of Ren beast attacks. They were not quick or merciful. The largest Ren beast stepped forward. Battle scars covered its face and shoulders. The colony database had a file on this one. It had destroyed 2 survey drones last year, then killed a mapping robot that got too close to its territory. Collective scientists called it Subject 17. Local miners apparently called it Shredder. The child looked up from whatever he was doing. He was holding something, a small bag. Ice crystals glittered inside it. Drew expected screaming, running, terror. Instead, the human child smiled. The boy said something. The universal translator struggled with it, the phrasing too informal and simple. Then it rendered the words, a greeting used between familiar pack members. "Hello, friends. Did you come to help me find more pretty ice?" Petra checked her translator. "That cannot be correct. Run it again." The translation remained the same. The human child was greeting the galaxy's most dangerous land predators like they were puppies. What happened next would haunt Drew's dreams for years. The scarred Ren beast, the one that had killed 2 drones and a robot, lowered its massive head. A sound came from deep in its chest, a rumbling purr that the database had no record of. Wren beasts did not purr. They roared, snarled, and screamed. But this one purred. The human child reached up with a small hand and scratched behind the creature's ear ridge. Clicks fell backward out of his chair. The sensor array is malfunctioning. This is not real data. Drew ran a full diagnostic while keeping his eyes locked on the screen. Every system showed green. What they were watching was actually happening on the surface of Frosthaven in real time, in the frozen canyon 12 miles from Ridge Point. The child pulled something from his jacket. Dried meat strips. He began handing them out to the wren beasts, who formed an orderly line like trained animals waiting for treats. When a younger beast tried to cut ahead, the scarred female growled low. The younger one shuffled back to its proper place. The child laughed, a bright sound that the audio feed picked up clearly. You have to wait your turn. Patches. Mom always says good manners matter. Petra's hand shook as she adjusted the thermal scanners. The readings on the human child showed normal body temperature. No sivering. No signs of cold stress. His exposed hands displayed healthy blood flow. His breathing stayed steady in atmosphere that should have left him gasping. This contradicts every xenobiology report in the collective database, she whispered. Humans are from Earth, a Class 4 garden world. Moderate temperatures, thick atmosphere, abundant liquid water. They are not supposed to survive Class 9 death world conditions. The child sat down on an ice boulder. The wren beasts settled around him like content pets. Two of them rested their enormous heads on his legs. He talked to them about something called a snow day and how his father promised to teach him ice fishing later. Drew watched the timestamp. The child had been exposed to lethal conditions for at least 20 minutes. He showed no distress whatsoever. The wren beast showed no aggression whatsoever. Everything about this situation violated known science. We need to contact Ridgepoint, Petra said. Something is happening here that we do not understand. Either the humans have developed technology we cannot detect, or our data on both humans and wren beasts is fundamentally wrong. Clicks had recovered enough to return to his station. If we approach, the wren beasts may attack. Protective aggression over young is common in pack predators. Drew made a decision. We observe and record. Then we contact the human settlement and demand an explanation. Because if humans can survive Frosthaven conditions and befriend wren beasts, then everything the collective thinks it knows about Death World colonization is incorrect. On the screen, the human child finished distributing his meat treats. He stood and waved to the wren beasts. I have to go home now. Dad will be mad if I miss dinner again. See you tomorrow. The scarred female made that impossible purring sound again. The child hugged her massive foreleg, then started walking back toward Ridge Point. The wren beasts watched him go, making no move to follow or attack. Drew started composing the contact message to Ridge Point's administrator. He had no idea what to say. How did one ask why a human child was having playdates with creatures that ate survey teams? The answer would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about humans. Drew spent 15 minutes composing the message to Ridge Point before deleting it and starting over. How did one professionally explain that they had witnessed impossible events? Finally, he settled on a simple, direct approach and opened a communication channel to the human settlement that a woman's face appeared on the screen. She looked to be in her 50s with weather-worn skin and gray streaks in her dark hair. Her eyes showed the kind of tired patience that came from managing frontier colonies. Ridge Point Administrator and Harper. What can I do for the collective survey team? Drew straightened in his seat. Administrator Harper, I am lead scientist Drew of Survey Team 12. We have an urgent situation to report. We observed a human child, approximately 6 years old, in Sector 7 Canyon. He was surrounded by 12 wren beasts. Ann's expression shifted from professional courtesy to mild annoyance. Let me guess. Danny wandered off again. The casualness of her response made Drew blink. You are aware that your child is in extreme danger? Wren beasts are classified as dash. Yeah, I know what they're classified as, and interrupted. Is Danny okay? Did he get hurt? Petra leaned into the camera view. The child appeared unharmed. However, he was in direct physical contact with multiple wren beasts. We have documented evidence of Danny making friends with everything that moves, yes. And sighed and pulled up something on her own screen. Could you send me his coordinates? I need to call him home. He was supposed to finish his math homework before going out. Click's translator buzzed with confusion. Administrator Harper, I do not believe you understand the severity. Ren beasts have killed 3 collective research teams. They are the most dangerous land predators on Frosthaven. N's tired expression softened into something like amusement. Oh, I understand just fine. You're not the first off-worlders to panic about Danny and the Wrens. Last month, a cargo freighter crew saw him riding on one's back and nearly called in a military extraction team. Drew felt his understanding of the situation crumble further. Riding? The child was riding a Wren beast. Danny's 7 next month. At that age, human kids get into all sorts of things. And check her screen again. Look, I appreciate you keeping an eye out, but Danny's fine. The Wrens won't hurt him. They won't hurt any of us, actually. The survey team exchanged looks. Petraspu Kerfali. Administrator, perhaps there has been a miscommunication. Wren beasts are extremely hostile to all sapient species. They have never been successfully approached without fatalities. N's amusement faded. She studied the 3 aliens on her screen with an expression that suggested she was reconsidering something. How much do you know about Ridgepoint's history? About how we got here and what happened in our first month? Standard colony records, Drew said. 43 humans, established 8 months ago. Mining operations, no major incidents reported. No major incidents reported to the collective and corrected. But we had some learning experiences. You want to understand what's happening with Danny and the Wrens? I'll tell you, but it might challenge some assumptions. She paused. Actually, why don't you come down to Ridgepoint? This conversation works better in person. Drew hesitated. Landing on Frosthaven meant exposure to the same conditions and creatures that had killed previous teams. But the mystery demanded investigation. We accept your invitation. However, we will maintain armed defensive protocols. Suit yourself, and said. But I'm telling you now, if you come in with weapons hot and targeting systems active, you'll upset the Wrens. They don't like feeling threatened. Nobody does. The communication ended. Drew looked at his colleagues. Petra was running new scans of Ridgepoint. Clix was updating their defensive systems. This is a terrible idea, Clix said. Humans are a new species to the collective. We do not fully understand their psychology or capabilities. Petra pulled up data on her screen. Actually, we have extensive files on humans. They are from Earth, a Class 4 garden world. Gravity slightly higher than standard, but within normal range. Temperature swings exist, but nothing extreme. Abundant plant and animal life. Humans evolved as pursuit predators with high endurance, but relatively weak physical strength compared to their planet's megafauna. Then how is a human child surviving Class 9 conditions? Drew demanded. And how are Wren beasts behaving like domesticated animals around humans when they have killed every other species that approached them? Nobody had an answer. They began the landing sequence in tense silence. Ridgepoint appeared on their view screen as they descended. The settlement consisted of 12 prefabricated domes connected by insulated corridors. Solar panels and thermal generators provided power. Mining equipment sat in organized rows near the largest dome. Everything looked standard for a frontier operation, except for the Wren beast that at least 20 of the massive creatures lounged around the settlement perimeter. Some slept in the sun near the thermal vents. Others played in something that looked disturbingly like a game, tossing chunks of ice to each other. 3 of them were digging at a snowbank while a human in a thermal suit watched and occasionally pointed to different spots. They are integrated into the settlement, Petra whispered. This is not defensive territory behavior. This is cohabitation. The survey vehicle landed in the designated zone. Drew activated every sensor and defensive system they had. If anything went wrong, they could teleport back to orbit in seconds and met them at the airlock. She was bundled in a standard thermal suit, though Drew noticed she had left her helmet off despite the brutal cold. Behind her stood the human child from the canyon, Danny, still wearing only his thin jacket. Both of them appeared completely comfortable. and beside them stood 4 wren beasts. The creatures were even larger in person. The smallest was still big enough to bite Drew in half. Their metallic claws scraped against the ice as they shifted weight. Intelligent eyes tracked every movement the survey team made. Drew's hand moved toward the emergency teleport control. "Don't," and said calmly. "Sudden movements make them nervous. Just walk normally. Pretend you're visiting neighbors." "Neighbors," Clicks repeated through his translator. "These creatures are classified as extreme hazards." Danny looked up at the nearest wren beast and said something in simple human language. The creature's ears twitched, and it settled into a sitting position. The others followed its lead. "They understand commands," Petra asked. "They understand respect," and corrected. "Come on inside. We have heated tea and some answers. Though I suspect you won't like what you learn about your precious classification system." The survey team followed and toward the settlement, walking between wren beasts that could have killed them instantly, but chose to simply watch. Danny skipped ahead, calling back to one of the creatures. "Don't forget to save me some dinner, okay? I'll share my vegetables with you later." The wren beast made that purring sound again. Drew's worldview cracked a little more. Whatever was happening at Ridgepoint, it rewrote everything the collective thought it knew about Death World colonization, human capabilities, and the nature of the galaxy's deadliest predators. The answers would not come easily, but they would come. And Drew suspected they would change the galaxy's understanding of humans forever. The central dome of Ridge Point radiated warmth that felt almost aggressive after the frozen exterior. Drew and his team removed their thermal gear and poured steaming liquid from a heated container into simple cups. "It's called tea," she explained, handing each of them a cup. "Brewed plant leaves. Helps with the cold, though I guess you folks handle temperature different than we do." Petra accepted her cup cautiously and ran a quick scan. "No toxins, no harmful compounds." She took a small sip and found it pleasant. "Thank you, Administrator Harper. Just and please. We don't stand on ceremony out here." She settled into a worn chair and gestured for them to sit. "So, you want to know about the wrens? We want to know how you are still alive," Drew said bluntly. Collective records document 15 encounters between sapient species and wren beasts over the past 30 years. 0 survivors. And nodded slowly. "I read those reports when we were planning the Ridgepoint colony. They worried me. We almost picked a different world because of the wren beasts." She took a long sip of her tea. "Then I read the detailed reports, not just the summaries. You know what I noticed?" "What?" Clicks asked. Every single encounter followed the same pattern. Scientists would arrive, set up remote observation posts, use drones and robots to study the wrens from a distance. Then they would try to capture one for study. Tranquilizer darts, containment fields, that sort of thing. And every time, the wrens would respond with extreme violence. Drew shifted uncomfortably. Standard xenobiology protocol requires specimen collection for proper analysis. Standard protocol, and repeated. "Tell me, Drew, if someone shot you with a tranquilizer dart and tried to drag you into a cage, how would you respond?" The question hung in the air. Petra set down her tea carefully. "You are suggesting the wren beasts were acting in self-defense. I'm saying that approaching something with weapons and restraints tends to get a violent response, regardless of species intelligence." And pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. "Let me tell you about human history with predators." The display shifted to show various Earth creatures. Wolves with sharp teeth, bears standing twice human height, great cats with claws and muscle, creatures that could easily kill an unarmed human. "My species evolved on a world full of things that wanted to eat us," and continued. "We were not the strongest or fastest. We survived by being smart and adaptable. And somewhere along the way, we figured out something important." "What was that?" Drew asked, genuinely curious now. "We learned that not everything has to be a fight. Humans domesticated wolves into dogs over thousands of years. We partnered with horses. We kept cats for pest control. We trained birds to hunt with us. We learned to coexist with predators by showing them we were not a threat and by offering mutual benefit." Danny wandered over, listening to the conversation, and pulled him into a gentle hug. "When we first arrived at Ridgepoint, we followed collective protocols. We set up perimeter defenses, motion sensors, armed patrols. We treated Frost Haven like enemy territory. Prudent measures, Clicks observed. Maybe, but 3 weeks in, we had an incident. N's expression darkened at the memory. A juvenile wren beast got caught in one of our cable snares during a storm. It was injured, hypothermic, scared. Our security team wanted to shoot it rather than risk an approach. She paused, looking at Danny. But we had a miner named Robert who grew up on a farm back on Earth. He had experience with large animals. He argued that the creature was just young and hurt, not actively hostile. So he went out to release it. That was extremely dangerous, Petra said. Yep, could have gotten him killed. Anne smiled slightly. Instead, the wren beast was docile, almost grateful. Robert brought it into our heated garage to stabilize it. We gave it water and some of our food stores. By morning, 3 adult wren beasts were sitting outside the garage door, just waiting. Drew leaned forward. Waiting for what? We didn't know. We were terrified. We thought they had come for revenge or to retrieve their young. Robert decided to find out. He opened the garage door and let the juvenile go. Anne's smile widened. The adults sniffed their baby all over, checking for injuries. Then the biggest one walked up to Robert and bumped its head against his chest, like a cat seeking affection. The survey team sat in stunned silence and continued her story. After that, the wrens started showing up around the settlement regularly. They would leave frozen prey animals at our doors. When our miners went out to work, wrens would follow at a distance, watching. They seemed curious about us. How did you respond? Petra asked. We started treating them like neighbors instead of threats. We shared our food. We learned their body language and vocalizations. We stopped pointing weapons at them and gestured to the dome around them. Within 2 months, they were integrated into our daily routine. They warn us about incoming storms. They help us find good mineral deposits. Last month, one of them guided a lost miner back to safety during a whiteout. Danny spoke up, his young voice clear. They're nice. I don't know why everyone thinks they're mean. Clicks turned his large eyes toward the child. Young human, are you not afraid of creatures that could harm you? Danny looked confused by the question. Why would I be afraid? They've never hurt anyone here. Slash lets me ride on her back. Patches shares his food with me. Big Red keeps me warm when I'm waiting for Dad to finish work. You have named them, Drew observed. Of course we named them, and said. They're individuals with distinct personalities. Slash is the scarred female you saw in the canyon. She's protective and cautious. Patches is young and playful. Big Red is the largest male, very gentle despite his size. Petra checked her datapad. Our sensors detected over 20 wren beasts around Ridge Point. Are they all friendly? Friendly is probably the wrong word. They're wild animals, not pets. But they have accepted us as part of their territory. We respect their space. They respect ours. When new wrens show up, the established ones teach them that humans are not prey or threat, and stood and walked to the dome's window. Outside, several wren beasts lounged in the sunlight while human miners worked nearby. You asked how we're still alive. The answer is simple. We didn't treat them like specimens or obstacles. We treated them like the intelligent, social creatures they are. Drew processed this information. It contradicted decades of collective xenobiology doctrine. But humans are from a garden world. Your physiology should not allow survival in these conditions. And laughed, a sound without humor. Garden world, that's what your files say about Earth. She pulled up new images on her display. Drew saw landscapes of Earth that did not match the garden world classification. Frozen tundras where temperatures rivaled Frost Haven. Deserts where heat exceeded most species' tolerance. Mountain ranges with thin atmosphere and deadly storms. Jungles filled with venomous creatures and diseases. Earth is not a gentle world, and said quietly. We have comfortable regions, sure, but humans evolved to survive almost anywhere. We lived in the Arctic with Stone Age technology. We crossed deserts that killed everything else. We climbed mountains that reached into space. Humans are persistence predators from a death world, Drew. We just happen to come from a very pretty death world. The revelation settled over the survey team like a weight. Petra spoke first. The collective classification system is wrong about Earth. The collective classification system, and said, does not account for species that evolved to handle everything their planet could throw at them. Humans adaptado. That's our survival strategy. And part of adaptation is learning to work with what you find instead of fighting it. Outside, Danny had left the dome and was playing with a young wren beast, tossing snowballs at the creature caught in its massive jaws. The scene looked impossibly peaceful. Drew watched and understood that everything he thought he knew about Death World colonization had just changed. The survey team decided to stay at Ridge Point for 3 days to properly document the human-wren-beast relationship, and assigned them quarters in one of the smaller domes and gave them unrestricted access to the settlement, with one rule: treat the wrens with the same respect they would show any sapient being. Drew spent the first day conducting interviews with the human colonists. Each person told similar stories of initial fear giving way to understanding, then cooperation, and finally something approaching friendship with creatures the galaxy considered monsters that a miner named Robert, the same one who had freed the trapped juvenile, showed Drew scars on his forearm. Mining accident 2 months back. Cave-in trapped me under debris. Burned my arms pretty bad on hot metal. He rolled up his sleeve to reveal healed tissue. Slash found me. She dug me out, then brought me this ice moss that grows in the deep caves. When I applied it, the burn stopped hurting immediately. They healed in a week with no infection. The wren beast brought you medicine? Drew asked, making detailed notes. She brought me what worked. Whether she understood it as medicine or just knew the moss helped with pain, I don't know. But she knew what I needed. Robert looked out toward where several wrens were lounging near the thermal vents. They're smart, Drew. Not tool-using smart, maybe, but smart in ways that matter. They understand cause and effect. They understand reciprocity. Petra interviewed the settlement's children. Ridgepoint had 7 kids, ranging from age 5 to 14. Every single one of them had regular contact with wren beasts and treated it as normal as playing with pets that a girl named Sophie, age 9, explained it to Petra with the patience of someone talking to a confused adult. You just have to know how to read them. If their ears are back and their tail is low, they want to be left alone. If their ears are forward and they make the rumbling sound, they want attention. It's not hard, but are you not concerned about danger? Petra asked. Sophie considered this seriously. My mom says everything is danger. She says the mining equipment is dangerous. The cold is dangerous. The canyon edges are dangerous. But we learn to be careful and respectful, and then things are okay. She paused. The wrens have never hurt anyone here. The mining equipment has hurt 3 people. So really, the wrens are safer. The logic was sound, if unsettling. Petra documented it carefully. On the second day, Drew observed the daily routines. Human miners headed out to their work sites each morning, and wren beasts would follow. Not all of them, but usually 2 or 3 per work crew. They did not interfere with the mining operations, but watched from nearby positions, a miner named Sam explained while drilling into an ice wall. They're curious about what we do. Sometimes they help by pointing out good mineral veins. Their sense of smell is incredible. They could detect metal deposits through solid ice. As if to demonstrate, a large male wren beast approached and pawed at a section of wall 10 feet from where Sam was working. Sam stopped drilling and moved to scan the indicated spot. Her equipment showed a rich iron deposit. Thanks, Big Red, she called to the creature. It made a satisfied rumbling sound and settled down to watch her work. Drew recorded the interaction with growing amazement. This was not domestication. The wrens are not servants or pets. This was genuine cooperation between species that had found mutual benefit in each other's presence. Later that day, Drew worked up the courage to approach one of the wren beasts directly. It was a medium-sized female that, and called Whisper, because she moved so quietly despite her size. The creature was resting near the main dome, soaking up sunlight. Drew approached slowly, following the guidelines and had provided. No sudden movements. No direct eye contact at first. Calm body language. He stopped about 10 feet away and waited. Whisper opened one eye and regarded him. Her ears shifted forward, indicating curiosity rather than aggression. She made a questioning sound, not quite a growl, but deeper than a purr. "Hello," Drew said, feeling foolish but determined. "My name is Drew. I'm trying to understand your relationship with the humans." Whisper watched him for a long moment. Then she stood, stretched in a way that reminded Drew of Earth cats despite her massive size, and walked over to him. She was easily twice his height at the shoulder. One swipe of her claws could end him. She lowered her head and sniffed him thoroughly. Her breath created fog clouds in the cold air. Drew stood very still, heart racing, while the creature conducted her inspection. Apparently satisfied, Whisper made a softer sound and bumped her head gently against Drew's shoulder, nearly knocking him over. Then she returned to her sunny spot and went back to sleep and had watch from nearby. "Congratulations. You just passed Whisper's friendship test. What would have happened if I failed?" Drew asked, still shaking slightly. She would have walked away. Wrens don't attack unless they feel threatened. You approached respectfully, so she responded respectfully and smiled. "You're learning." That evening, Clicks made a breakthrough in understanding Wren beast vocalizations. Using Ridge Point's recording equipment and some sophisticated analysis programs, he identified 17 distinct sounds that the Wrens use consistently in specific situations. It was not a complex language, but it was communication beyond simple animal calls. This suggests higher cognitive function than previously documented, Clicks reported to the team. They're not merely reacting to stimuli. They are conveying information to each other and to the humans. Petra added her findings. "I've been studying their social structure. They operate in family groups with clear hierarchies, but those hierarchies are based on respect and proven capability rather than pure physical dominance. The largest male, Big Red, is not actually the leader. That role belongs to Slash, the scarred female. She earns her position through intelligence and decision-making." Drew compiled all their data into a preliminary report. The implications were staggering. If Wren beasts were this intelligent and capable of interspecies cooperation, then collective policies had led to the unnecessary deaths of both Wrens and research teams. The violence had not been inevitable. It had been provoked by approaches based on fear rather than respect. On the third morning, Danny found Drew sitting outside the main dome, watching the sunrise paint the ice fields in shades of pink and gold. The boy sat down next to him without asking permission, the way children often did. "Are you going to tell everyone that the Wrens are nice?" Danny asked. Drew considered how to answer. "I'm going to tell everyone what we observed here. That humans and Wren beasts can coexist peacefully when both species approach each other with respect." "Good," Danny said firmly, "because it makes me sad when people are mean to them. They're just trying to live their lives, same as everyone." A Wren beast, the one Danny called Patches, wandered over and laid down beside them. The creature was young, probably not much older than Danny in relative terms. It rested its head on the boy's lap and closed its eyes contentedly. Drew watched a human child and a deadly predator sharing a moment of simple companionship under an alien sun. He thought about all the collective's classifications and protocols and scientific certainties. Maybe he thought the humans had something important to teach the galaxy after all. Sometimes the deadliest creatures were only deadly because that was how they were treated. Change the approach, change the outcome. That IT seemed almost too simple. But watching Danny scratch behind Patch's ear while the Wren beast purred in contentment, Drew could not deny the evidence before his eyes. Respect earned respect. Even from monsters. Especially from monsters. The emergency weather alert came during dinner on the third night. Drew was eating something and called stew, a warm mixture of preserved vegetables and protein that tasted far better than standard ration packs. The sudden blaring alarm made him drop his spoon and checked her data pad without visible concern. Category 5 ice storm. Probably hit us in about 2 hours. She raised her voice to address the entire dining hall. Standard storm protocols, everyone. Secure the external equipment, seal the dome connections, and get to the central shelter. The human colonists moved with practiced efficiency. No panique, no rusing. They had clearly done this before. Drew and his team followed Anne's instructions to help where they could, though mostly they stayed out of the way while experienced colonists worked. Petra monitored the approaching storm on the settlement's weather system. The readings were apocalyptic. Wind speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour. Temperature dropping to minus 115 degrees. Visibility would reach absolute zero. The storm would strip metal from exposed surfaces and freeze methane solid. How often do these storms occur? Petra asked Anne. Every few weeks. Frosthaven's weather patterns are intense. And sealed the last dome connection and checked her list. This is a big one, though. We will need to stay inside for at least 6 hours, maybe longer. Drew looked around the central dome where everyone was gathering. 43 humans, 3 visiting aliens, supplies for an extended shelter period. Everything seemed organized and calm. Then he noticed what was missing. Where are the Ren beasts? And paused. They don't shelter during storms. They're built for this weather. They will ride it out in their own way. Clicks checked his external sensors. The Wrens were moving, but not toward any visible shelter. Instead, they were positioning themselves around the settlement's perimeter. They are forming a defensive circle around the colony. They do that during bad storms, Danny said. He was helping his father secure some storage containers, but looked worried. They protect us from the worst wind and flying ice. Drew pulled up the external camera feeds on his datapad. Through the gathering gloom, he could see Wren beasts taking positions at regular intervals around Ridge Point. They settled into the ice, facing outward, creating a living windbreak between the settlement and the approaching fury. They are exposing themselves to the full force of the storm to shield your structures, Drew said slowly. This is pack protection behavior. This is friendship, and corrected quietly. They know the storms can damage our domes. They help us the same way we helped that juvenile months ago. The storm hit like a physical blow. Even inside the insulated central dome, they could hear the wind screaming. The temperature readouts plummeted. Ice particles hit the dome's exterior with sounds like bullets. Drew kept his eyes on the external feeds. The visibility was nearly zero, but thermal sensors still tracked the Wren beasts. They had not moved from their positions. The wind battered them with deadly force. Ice debris flew past at speeds that would kill most creatures. The Wrens held their ground an hour into the storm. The sensor showed one of the younger Wren beasts take a direct hit from a large piece of frozen metal. The creature staggered, clearly injured, but did not abandon its post. Danny saw it on the monitor. His eyes went wide. That's Patches. He's hurt. The boy started toward the airlock and caught him before he reached it. Dunny, no, you cannot go out there. But Patches needs help. Tears formed in Danny's eyes. He's hurt because he's protecting us. And knelt to her son's level. I know, sweetheart. I know it's hard. But if you go out there, Patches will leave his position to protect you. That will create a gap in their defensive line. The wind could damage the eastern dome where the medical supplies are stored. So we just watch him suffer. Danny's voice broke. We trust him to be strong enough to last until the storm ends. Then we help him and hug her son tightly. Sometimes the bravest thing is waiting. Drew watched this exchange and felt something shift in his understanding. The humans cared about the Wren beasts. Genuinely cared. This was not a research interest or a curiosity. These people had formed real emotional bonds with creatures the galaxy classified as mindless predators. The storm raged for 4 hours. The wind speeds peaked at 230 miles per hour. A section of solar panel array tore loose despite being anchored with industrial-grade bolts. The flying debris hit the western dome, and only the Wren beasts positioned there prevented the shrapnel from breaching the structure. The creatures intercepted the debris with their armored bodies. Drew saw one of them take multiple hits, protecting the dome behind it. The Wren beast did not flee. It did not even flinch. It simply stood firm against the storm's assault. Finally, mercifully, the wind began to ease. The temperature started climbing back toward merely deadly instead of instantly fatal. Visibility improved from 0 to merely terrible. The humans began emergence procedures immediately and led a team to check the Wren beasts for injuries. Drew and his survey team followed, documenting everything. What they found outside humbled Drew to his core. Every single Wren beast showed damage. Ice had accumulated in their fur. Some bled from cuts caused by flying debris. Several limped from impacts or exhaustion. Patches, the young one Danny cared about, had a nasty gash across his shoulder where the metal had struck him. The humans moved among them with medical supplies, treating injuries, clearing ice buildup, offering food and warm water. The Wrens accepted this care with tired gratitude, making soft sounds that the translator could not quite render, but that clearly conveyed trust. Danny ran to Patches and wrapped his small arms around the creature's neck, crying. Patches lowered his massive head and nuzzled the boy gently despite his obvious pain, and treated the shoulder wound with antiseptic and sealed it with medical gel. The Wren beast held still for the procedure, understanding it was help. Robert called out from near the eastern perimeter. "We have a problem. The thermal vent is partially collapsed. The backup generator is running, but we're going to need to repair the main heat system soon." Two of the larger Wren beasts immediately moved to the collapsed vent and began digging at the ice and debris. Their powerful claws made quick work of the blockage. Within 20 minutes, they had cleared enough space for the human engineers to access the damaged equipment. Drew watched humans and Wren beasts working together to repair storm damage. He saw Danny still holding on to Patches, refusing to leave his friend's side. He saw and directing repair crews while simultaneously checking on injured Wrens. This was not domestication. This was not even simple cooperation. This was community. Two species that had found each other in a hostile environment and chosen partnership over conflict. Petra appeared beside Drew, her translator unit buzzing softly. "I've been analyzing the storm data. The Wren's defensive positioning reduced structural damage to the settlement by approximately 60%. Without their protection, we would have lost at least 2 domes and possibly suffered human casualties. They risked their lives for humans," Drew said, "and the humans are now caring for their injuries with the same dedication they would show for their own people." Petra's large eyes reflected the lights from the settlement. "This changes everything we thought we knew about interspecies relationships." Clicks joined them, his mandibles clicking in a pattern that suggested deep thought. "I've been consulting the collective's xenosociology databases. There are no recorded instances of sustained cooperation between sapient species and non-sapient predators at this level. The humans have achieved something unprecedented." Drew looked at the scene before him. Danny was helping and applying medical gel to Patch's shoulder. Robert was offering food to Big Red, who had taken several hard hits defending the mining equipment storage. Sophie and the other children were distributing warm water to all the Wrens. And the Wrens, these supposed monsters, these classified extreme hazards, accepted everything with patience and clear affection. "We need to inform the collective," Drew said quietly. "Human capabilities have been grossly underestimated, and our understanding of Deathworld predators has been fundamentally wrong. Will they believe our report?" Petra asked. Drew thought about that. The evidence was overwhelming, but it contradicted decades of established science. They will have to, because if humans can do this on Frosthaven, they can probably do it on dozens of worlds we have declared too dangerous for colonization. This is not just a scientific discovery. This is a complete paradigm shift for how the galaxy approaches hostile environments. The three of them stood in the cold and watched a little human boy hug a creature that could kill him instantly, while that creature protected him as carefully as it would its own young. Sometimes, Drew realized, the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy were only dangerous until someone showed them kindness. 3 months after Survey Team 12 returned to collective headquarters, the Council of Species convened for an emergency session. Drew stood before representatives from 42 different worlds, his comprehensive report displayed on screens throughout the chamber. The footage played in silence. Danny surrounded by Wren beasts. The creatures defending Ridgepoint during the storm. Humans and Wrens working together in daily life. Every piece of evidence that had shattered Drew's understanding of xenobiology. When the presentation ended, the chamber erupted in debate. A Saurian council member from Drew's own homeworld spoke first. "This data must be flawed. Wren beasts have killed 3 research teams. They cannot suddenly become peaceful." Drew had expected this. "With respect, Counselor, the Wren beasts did not suddenly become peaceful. They responded to a different approach. Every previous team used weapons, restraints, and aggressive study methods. The humans used respect and cooperation. A Hiver representative clicked loudly. The reports claim human children interact safely with these predators. This violates basic survival instinct. Young of all species fear danger. Petra stepped forward. She had requested permission to join Drew for this presentation. Human children are raised to assess danger contextually rather than categorically. They learn that some things are dangerous when mishandled, but safe when approached correctly. Mining equipment, cooking heat. Apparently, also rend beasts. Preposterous, declared a methane-breathing, cloud-born counselor. The humans must be using some form of pheromone control or sonic manipulation that our sensors failed to detect. Drew shook his head. We ran every possible scan. No technological intervention exists. The relationship is purely behavioral and psychological. He pulled up new data. Furthermore, I submit evidence that our classification of Earth as a Class 4 garden world is incorrect. The chamber fell silent. Drew showed the images, and it shared. Earth's frozen tundras, blistering deserts, mountain ranges with lethal atmospheres, jungles filled with venomous creatures and deadly diseases. Humans evolved on a death world, Drew stated clearly. They faced megafauna predators, extreme weather, and hostile environments across their entire planet. They survived not through physical superiority, but through intelligence, adaptability, and the ability to form cooperative relationships with other species. A reptilian counselor leaned forward. Are you suggesting we reclassify Earth? I am suggesting that our entire classification system fails to account for species that evolved to handle diverse extreme conditions rather than specializing in one environment. Drew gestured to the frozen image of Danny hugging Patches. Humans do not see Frosthaven as impossibly hostile. They see it as challenging but manageable, because they come from a world that prepared them for almost anything. Clicks added his analysis. I have studied human history extensively since our visit to Ridge Point. Humans domesticated wolves, which became dogs. They partnered with horses. They kept cats, trained birds of prey, even learned to work alongside dolphins in their oceans. Cross-species cooperation is fundamental to human survival strategy. The debate continued for hours. Some counselors remained skeptical. Others saw opportunity. Finally, a senior Soren administrator called for order. The evidence is substantial, if unprecedented. I propose we conduct a controlled experiment. Establish human settlements on 6 worlds currently classified as too dangerous for colonization due to hostile wildlife. Monitor the results over 1 standard year. The proposal passed with narrow majority support. Drew was assigned to oversee the project. Within 8 months, human colonies appeared on 6 deadly worlds. Each settlement received minimal support and clear instructions. Approach local wildlife with respect rather than weapons. The results transformed galactic colonization policy forever on a world called Thorn Valley. Humans befriended pack hunters that had killed 2 previous survey teams. The predators began guiding human miners to rich or deposits in exchange for shared meals and protection of their young, dead on Storm Ridge. Humans learned to work alongside aerial predators that nested in electromagnetic storm clouds. The creatures, once considered extreme hazards, became partners in weather prediction and high-altitude research. That on Venom Coast, humans established relationships with amphibious predators whose toxin had killed researchers who tried to capture them. The creatures allowed humans to study them peacefully and even shared their territory's resources. Every single settlement reported successful integration with local predator species within 6 months. Not through technology or force, but through the same approach Ridge Point had pioneered. Treat dangerous creatures as intelligent neighbors rather than obstacles to eliminate. Drew returned to Ridge Point 2 years after his initial visit. The settlement had grown to 200 inhabitants. The rend beast population had increased as well, with several females choosing to den near the human structures, and met him at the landing pad, now wearing the insignia of Regional Administrator for Human Frontier Operations. Welcome back, Drew. You have good timing. We have something special to show you. She led him to the eastern perimeter where a crowd had gathered. In the center, surrounded by gentle humans and watchful wren beasts, a scarred female Drew recognized immediately lay in a specially prepared shelter. Slash had given birth to 3 cubs. Danny, now 9 years old, sat quietly nearby and explained in a soft voice. Slash is the first wren beast to allow humans to witness her cub's birth. She trusts us to help protect them during their most vulnerable weeks. Drew watched as a human medic carefully examined one of the tiny cubs, no bigger than a house cat, while Slash watched with calm attention. The mother wren beast made a rumbling sound, and the medic adjusted her touch, gentler. She's giving feedback, Drew realized, teaching the humans how to handle her young properly. Exactly, and said, "This is not just tolerance anymore. This is true partnership. She knows we want to help, and she's showing us how." One of the cubs wobbled over to Danny. The boy remained very still, letting the baby wren beast sniff his hand. The cub made a tiny version of the purring sound and climbed into Danny's lap. Slash watched this. She could have stopped it with a single growl. Instead, she made a soft approving sound and returned her attention to her other cubs. Drew felt his eyes sting with emotion he had not expected. "You have done something no other species in the galaxy has achieved. You have built a society that includes both sapient and non-sapient species as equal partners. We just treated them the way we wanted to be treated," Danny said simply, stroking the cub's soft fur. "It's not that hard." But it was hard, Drew thought. It required setting aside fear and assumption. It required approaching danger with respect instead of weapons. It required believing that cooperation was possible even when all evidence suggested otherwise, that IT required being human. Over the following years, Ridge Point became a training center for the galaxy's frontier colonization efforts. Observers from dozens of species came to learn the human approach. Some species could not replicate it, their psychology too different, their instincts too rigid. But many found value in the demonstrations. Danny grew into a young man who specialized in what the collective now called hostile species integration. He traveled to new worlds, teaching colonists how to read predator behavior, how to establish mutual respect, how to turn potential enemies into allies. The wren beasts thrived under human partnership. Their population stabilized and grew. They were removed from the extreme hazard list. Several other species that had been classified as too dangerous to approach received similar reclassification after humans demonstrated peaceful contact was possible. Drew eventually retired from active service and wrote a comprehensive xenobiology text that became required reading in collective universities. The final chapter focused on Ridge Point and the lessons learned from a little boy who saw the galaxy's deadliest predators and chose to make friends instead of fear. The book's closing paragraph became famous across known space. The humans of Earth survived their death world not by conquering it, but by learning to live within it. They brought this wisdom to the stars, teaching the galaxy that the deadliest creatures often become the strongest allies when treated with dignity and respect. Ridge Point stands as proof that cooperation transcends species boundaries, and that sometimes the bravest act is extending a hand in friendship to something that could destroy you. The wren beasts and humans of Frost Haven chose partnership over conflict, and in doing so, they changed the galaxy's understanding of what is possible. 20 years after Drew's first visit, Ridge Point celebrated its anniversary with a ceremony attended by representatives from across the collective. Danny, now an adult with gray starting to show in his hair, stood before the crowd with Slash beside him. The old wren beast moved slower now, her muzzle white with age, but her eyes still sharp and intelligent, that he spoke simply. "We learned that being from a death world means understanding that everything dangerous is not necessarily an enemy. Sometimes the fiercest predator is just another being trying to survive in a hard place. When we offered respect instead of fear, friendship instead of weapons, the wrens showed us who they really were. Not monsters, just neighbors." Slash made her rumbling purr, and the crowd of humans and aliens applauded. Around the settlement, wren beasts of all ages lounged peacefully among the colonists. Cubs played with human children. Adults worked alongside mining crews. Elders rested near the thermal vents while colonists brought them water and food. Drew watched from the crowd and smiled. He had come to Frost Haven expecting to document a tragedy. Instead, he had witnessed the beginning of a revolution in how the galaxy understood itself. Sometimes the most important discoveries were not about new technologies or distant worlds. Sometimes they were about learning that kindness could be stronger than weapons, and that the deadliest creatures in the galaxy were only deadly until someone showed them a better way. The little human boy had taught the cosmos that lesson, and the galaxy would never be quite the same